All right, it's a Thursday night, Las Vegas Triathlon Club member spotlight, and we've got almost a new member, Patrick Bowlds. Hi, Patrick, how are you?
Doing great. How are you guys doing?
Oh, doing good. Thanks for joining us. This is going to be fun. You joined the club last year, and I know, Bob, I'm going to steal some of your content here, but joined the club last year and have done some of our races, and it's going to be really interesting to hear about your journey into triathlon. But before I steal too much of Bob's material, I'm going to, hey, Bob, how's it going?
That's going good, John. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Good deal. And I will turn it over to you for the official introduction.
Hey, hi everybody, and hello, Patrick, and thank you so much for being on tonight. That's really great for you to take the time for us.
Yeah,
Um,
appreciate you being here.
for everybody who's listening, Patrick has a very interesting job, and we'll get to that in a second. But as John said, he's joined the club in the beginning of this year. First triathlon was in 2023, and he's already done sprint through fulls. And gone quite far in a very short period of time. And I, at our last club race, I was surprised. People started coming in off the bike way before they should have been coming in off the bike. It was the fastest bike I'd ever seen, and Patrick came in third place. So he was flying, and so he's already an accomplished triathlete. So again, we're glad to have Patrick on tonight. And for everybody listening, Patrick flies an F-22 Raptor, and that's arguably the most sophisticated aircraft on Earth. And it's got to be amazing doing that. So sorry to get started like this, but Patrick, would you please tell us what it's like to fly one of those things?
Yeah, well, you're talking me up, so I got I can only go down from here, and they let people like me fly it, so I can't be that sophisticated. But I appreciate the introduction; those are kind words. Yeah, flying F-22, super humbling. I joined the Air Force in ROTC out of college. Did pilot training, and I've been flying the Raptor for the last 8 or 9 years or so. And flying it is every time you get into it, it's the joke is like you go from pilot training, you go from a T-38, which is a jet aircraft trainer, into that's like your go-kart, and you get put into an F-22, and that's like going into a Ferrari. So the first couple times flying it, it's kind of high stress. You're thinking about everything, what you're learning a whole new how to drive a car basically, except you're flying with limited hours. So getting used to that takes some time, and I kind of describe it as like when you're driving a car and you're learning to drive a car, you're hyper focused on the speedometer. You're looking at your mirrors, you're seeing who's behind you, where's my exit, and you're like hyper focused, braking, and everything's a little jerky. And then you start getting more comfortable, and then next thing you know, you're kind of thinking of things subconsciously in a way almost. So that's kind of like flying in general, and then flying the F-22 is just kind of an extension of that. And we were talking a little bit earlier about how it feels to fly, and it's one of those things where I think the first, I don't know, 10 or 15 flights, I didn't actually like appreciate it, because you're thinking about the mission and training, and like, I don't want to mess up in my training. So like, it took a while to be actually appreciative of what's going on, and like actually look outside, like obviously looking outside, but to be like, oh wow, that's the coast of Florida, that's pretty amazing, like I'm in an F-22,
Wow.
that's an amazing experience. So that's been a super awesome journey, humbling every step of the way, and it gives me great opportunities to meet awesome folks, go to cool places, and that's what brought me to Vegas and actually kind of help solidify the triathlon kind of plan. So
Does it ever get, I mean, it can't possibly get ho-hum driving when you're flying at Mach 2. It can't. It's impossible. But does it ever get, routine?
uh, I don't think it ever gets routine. I think you get there's certain things that you get more accustomed to. Like for example, like when we take off out of Nellis Air Force Base and go to the airspace where we do most of our flying, you do that like so many times. It's like you driving to work, or like walking downstairs from your bedroom to your kitchen. Like you're kind of accustomed to it. And obviously, like you have to be on your game. If you're driving to work, you got to be paying attention. Um, but you kind of like go through it so often that it becomes almost like second nature in a way. In terms of like the quote cool stuff that you get to do, I don't think, like, if you have the opportunity to go to an air show or something like that and see all the cool stuff, like I don't think in the moment I'm thinking that I'm doing that, and that's really cool. It's always like after the fact you landed, and you're like, oh wow, that was really cool. We got to do,
Pretty cool.
yeah, I got to do this cool like flight, and I got to fly with F-16s and F-35s, and I'm in a Raptor, and it's really awesome. But like in the moment, you kind of are just focused on what you need to do, whatever it is, training or something. So
Right. Now, transitioning here, you're real fast on a bicycle. There's no question. And you finished third in our race, and there were some really fast people in that race, this last race. So, but it still can't be all that exciting compared to, flying one of those things. But tell us what made you want to get into triathlon,
yeah,
and
so that
how did you get started in that?
so I've always obviously in the military, relatively physically fit. Like I lift weights, I'd run. I lived in Alaska a few years ago and actually got into mountain biking. So I really enjoyed mountain biking and the cycling side, but never really road biked until triathlon type stuff. So that was kind of in the background. So kind of athletic, just for athletic sake, nothing like in particular. How I got into triathlon was I was at a ski weekend in Lake Tahoe with some other F-22 pilots and uh, their spouses. And one of my really close F-22 friends, his wife, she raced collegiately in triathlon. She just did Kona last year and finished like sixth for her age group, and she's going to Nice. She's like a stud. She's amazing at triathlon. So of course, we had been drinking a little bit, and everybody's like talking about, oh, it would be so cool to do an Ironman or half Ironman. She's like, why don't you guys do it? Like, meanwhile, like she had been up at 6 a.m. to do a run before we went to go ski because she's training. But so that's kind of like the bug. Like I was like, oh, like why not? Like what's stopping me from trying this? And I didn't have a road bike at the time, and this is the February of 2022. So I was like, all right, well, my cousin has a friend that always has an expression that's, are you interested or are you just committed? Like, and that kind of resonated with me where it's like, everybody's interested in doing things. Like I'm interested in running a marathon or doing a triathlon, or I'm interested in learning a new language, but like, are you actually committed to the process?
Mhm.
So that kind of resonated with me. And I'm like, well, if I want to, think how cool it is to do an Ironman, or like the challenge of doing an Ironman or a half Ironman, or even just a sprint triathlon, I got to kind of put my money where my mouth is. So, bought a road bike, started road cycling, started running a little bit more focused, and then jumped in the pool for the first time in a while and tried to figure out how to swim. And so then kind of trained through that. I found the club on Facebook or online, and I think I joined last year and did like one sprint in June or July last year. And then I did Washington 70.3, Maple Valley. And then I was feeling real confident in myself and said, if I'm already going to be doing all this training with the balancing work life, all that stuff, why not just train for a full? So while I was training for the half Ironman, I signed up for Ironman Arizona in November and kind of adjusted my training so that I would, kind of be ready for the full. And then I completed both of those. And I've really enjoyed the training more than I thought I would. I've really enjoyed getting outside, meeting great people. The community is a huge aspect, and like Vegas has been super awesome in terms of the accessibility for all that stuff. So a long answer to how I got into it. Started with beer and skiing, and now here I am.
That's a great mixture.
Yeah.
And got you involved. I mean, that's really neat to, you have friends around you like that ultimately lead to you taking in something on. And I love that saying, if you will, are you interested or are you committed? I think that's a great sort of mindset going forward. So you went from a sprint to a full in a pretty compressed period of time. That's pretty awesome.
Don't do that. Yeah, it's dumb.
Also, Patrick, didn't you have some trouble when you were first starting swimming? When you first got in the pool? Tell us about what that was like, and why how you got through that.
Oh yeah. So I swam in high school, and I'll do air quotes because it was senior year of high school. I primarily played baseball, and a couple of my friends said, "Oh, wouldn't it be fun if we just joined the swim team?" So like I had technically gotten some formal coaching that I didn't remember anything of, and it was like however long ago that was. So when I jumped back in the pool, I was quite literally like just trying to figure out as I went along. So I found a couple like instructional podcasts and how to swim, watch some YouTube videos, and just kind of grinded my way away with swimming. So that was it's been a challenge, and it's always frustrating in the pool a little bit. But initially, you see like anything like really steep gains, and you're super motivated, and then it starts to taper off, which is kind of where I'm at. So they're like, again, it's like, all right, I could go to the pool and hammer it out, and I'll get maybe 1 second per 100 faster, or I cannot do this. And but I've actually kind of enjoyed the technical side of the swimming, where it's kind of a mind game of all the technique rather than just kind of brute force of like strength or endurance.
Well, I love how you had the goal. It sounded like your initial goal was to do an iron distance Ironman race.
Yeah.
And, you did the sprint and the 70.3 along the way. I'm curious, as you progressed to preparing for Ironman Arizona, what types of things did you change in your training program from doing your sprint to then the 70.3 and then to the full?
Yeah, it was primarily just volume, I would say, was the big thing. I first found a training plan online. That was kind of what I was looking at, and they had a half Ironman to an Ironman, kind of two simultaneously. And I think when I made the decision was in probably like August last year to do the full. So up until that point, I had been just training for the half, and that was, I would say, pretty manageable in terms of time commitment, like about an hour a day or so. And then once going to the full, the volume significantly increased. A lot of low intensity, but just to get that kind of base, which I think I had, but maybe not to Ironman level capacity. So pretty quickly, I realized that my weekends, as the weather was getting nice and the wife wanted to go do more hiking and camping, was like, hey, I got to spend 5 to 6 hours on a bike on Saturday, and I got a 3-hour run on Sunday. So, but she's a runner, so she gets it. She does her long runs, so that made it a little bit easier. It's just kind of like who's going to get the dog in the morning, and who's going to run, or who's going to go on the trainer. So, but yeah, it was primarily like a lot of volume was kind of the biggest thing to overcome, and then just time, kind of committed to that low intensity type stuff.
Patrick, one thing you mentioned that's interesting is the fact that you did low intensity. Now, on your what a lot of people, me included, I didn't get that through my head for a long time, but you picked it up real quick. How did you learn the low intensity? That how did you get that so fast?
Honestly,
knowledge of that.
Yeah, I like to pretend that I'm smart on things. I think a lot of times in terms of like just I'll get really invested in something, and so like learning about those things. And so my wife is a runner; she's like pretty proficient. So she actually works with Ted, and she kind of has been sharing her training plan. So she was kind of the one, intro, like the low intensity, the highs, like zone 2 type training for a while. And for me, previously, if I'm going for a run, I'm just going to go run 3 miles at a pace that I feel like I'm working hard, because then I feel like I got to work out. And then kind of, so talking with my wife, listening some, podcasts and just kind of like YouTube videos on because I kind of had to buy into that. And then it was very difficult, and still is difficult on some days where you're like, really I just want to get my heart rate up, feel like I got to work out, and you're like, I just got to stay slow. It's like dedicated to like how it is like that. So trying to absorb as much information as I could, and then just trust like I'm a kind of late onset triathlon. So it's like trying to learn as much from the people who have been doing it for a while, and I kind of just trust that process.
Well, you're obviously intelligent, the ability to learn.
Yeah, and I want to ask this almost the same question, but just a little differently. What parallels are there in terms of learning to fly jets in learning triathlon? I mean, where do you see your interest sort of being pulled, and how you take advantage of your, the approach of learning to fly a jet to pick up a new sport?
Good question.
Yeah, I would say it's I have to think about that for a little bit. But I think ultimately the like learning a new jet, or for us, if we're getting like different qualifications, we call them going through upgrades. it just makes you more qualified in the aircraft. You can do more things. You become an instructor, all these types of things. Each one of those tasks initially feels like an insurmountable thing. So, starting out in pilot training, learning all the FAA rules, learning all like the instrument procedures, all of like this regulation and guidance before you even like figure out like, back is up, forward is down, kind of like basic aviation. So it's this like really big, like looks insurmountable, looks like a steep learning curve, but you kind of start a little bit at a time and kind of work your way through it. So kind of parallels to triathlon is similar, very, very similar, right? Like I'm never going to be able to run a marathon. I'm never going to be able to bike 112 miles or even I'm never going to swim 50 meters or wherever like you are at, or it's like you can start making those little like improvements and it's like hard to see at first, but then, a week or two later, you start realizing like, oh, I'm actually remembering whatever I was trying to learn for, become a pilot, or I'm actually getting, extra 100 meters in this time, which is like 2 seconds faster. So that's super awesome. The other thing is just like a challenge. I don't know. I feel like it's really easy to get stagnant in kind of wherever you're doing. So continually like striving to find challenges, and those opportunities exist, military, outside of the military. And this just happened to be kind of what I found for physical challenges, and I've been really enjoying all that.
I love that. That is so great, because you're right. It does seem insurmountable when you're thinking, I'm going to have to swim 2.4 miles, bike 112 miles, and run a marathon. But when you start breaking it down, like you talked about, that makes a lot of sense. So what a great approach. All right, so we said we'd keep you on for 15 minutes, and we're already there. Well, I'm curious, what's in the future for you in triathlon?
Yeah, so I have currently signed up for the T100 in Vegas, and then I feel like a complete fraud because my first half Ironman I qualified for New Zealand, so I'm going to New Zealand.
Awesome.
It was actually
Wow.
I finished 14th for my age group, and it was a classic roll down where like my wife is texting Ted and he's like, "Hey, just go. You never know."
Yeah.
And so of course I got the roll down slot, and my wife and I looked at each other like, "Oh, I guess we're going to New Zealand. I guess I'm in a triathlon." So that's
I think a lot of us have got that.
yeah. So I'm like, I don't know what happened. I'm like, oh crap, I got to start booking flights. So those are the two like upcoming in the winter, and then nothing signed up for next year, but probably do Oceanside again. I did it last year, and then maybe St. George as well, just proximity wise because they're pretty close. But that's kind of on the calendar right now, and I'd love to be like more involved with the triathlon, the local community, like with the club, just because there's travel associated with us. So I miss some events, but I appreciate all the stuff you guys do, and I want to be more involved. So hopefully hanging out with you guys some more.
We'll certainly take you up on that.
Yeah.
We always need the help on all the races.
Yeah. Well, and I want to close this out with saying thank you for your service. That's incredibly important, and really appreciate that. And yeah, this would be great. And we're going to New Zealand. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your support. I appreciate that sentiment.
Great. Well, thanks so much. This is great to get to know your story a bit more, not only in triathlon, but what you do, and very impressive. And yeah, like I said, it will be fun to go to New Zealand and enjoy that trip.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Bob, anything?
No, thanks again for being on, Patrick. That was fun, and look forward to doing maybe some riding and swimming with you.
Yeah, let me know. I'm always available. Well, maybe not always available, but always down to ride. So
yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll be drafting behind you. Don't worry.
Well, I love it. Okay, thanks, Patrick. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.